All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of our alumni series, our IC alumni series. Today, we have 2015 graduate David Boehne joining us today. David, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you coming on and talking with me for a little bit. David had quite the athletic career at Indian Creek. He was a three-sport athlete, all conference in both baseball and basketball, and had quite a golf career too that we're going to be talking quite a bit about. So I want to start kind of with the fact that you played so many sports. What kind of got you into sports, and especially playing as many as you did? When did you start playing them, and who were some of the people that got you into it?
Yeah. I guess I don't really know my drive initially for getting into sports. I think I just had a natural competitiveness just growing up and wanting to stay active and staying outside. I think that was kind of a big part. And then a lot of my friends and friend group participated in sports. So I think that just drove me just to continue with them and just enjoying them. And I guess I did well enough in them that it kept me motivated to continue playing them. I know my parents, I think they were encouraging all my sisters and I just to be in sports. I think one, just to keep us busy, keep us active out of the house. But also I think they just kind of enjoyed watching us play also. So they always pushed us and encouraged us to stay active also.
Did you have a favorite sport growing up?
Yeah, I think growing up, I really enjoyed baseball a lot. I think that was probably just because that was the first sport I started off like playing t-ball growing up. And I think I was just naturally maybe ahead of the curve a little bit for baseball, just doing really well at a younger age. And then I started soccer off really young also. Not really exceptional at soccer, but at a young age, all you have to do is run around and be able to touch the ball with your foot. So I enjoyed it in that aspect, and then picked up golf pretty young too. And then basketball was probably honestly the sport that I started at maybe a later age, just because I think just being from a smaller community, there wasn't a lot of rec leagues for like really young, and I don't think I started basketball maybe till about third or fourth grade that I picked that up.
As you got older into high school, being a three-sport athlete, was did that you said baseball was the one that you liked originally the most? Did that change in high school at all?
Yeah, I think I would say that I really enjoyed basketball going forward. Not to say that I didn't like golf or baseball as much, but I think I just really enjoyed the team aspect that basketball had, where baseball and golf has that, but definitely they're more individualized in ways where basketball really relies on your team. And I think I really enjoyed like the fan atmosphere that basketball provided also. Obviously with golf, you had uh, Coach Olson and then maybe some other players watching you, but that's about it. And then
Sure.
baseball was just was fans, but just not as big as a sporting event as basketball was.
And how do you think that plays a part into high school athletics? Obviously, at Indian Creek, we have a tremendous fan base, and we
Yes.
not only do we get a lot of fans at our home games, but we travel really well. How do you think that helps with the whole experience, the whole Indian Creek basketball experience?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely, I think with like younger players or younger students coming to high school basketball games, they see like, wow, like there's a lot of like fans and people that really enjoy this. Like, here's a sport that I want to focus on because there's a lot of support to the system. So I think that's a great thing that the high school can bring to the younger students growing up and really drive them to play basketball. And I know also with like volleyball, the same deal, like girls volleyball is really popular just because you're in the same gym, the same kind of atmosphere, and just the same competitiveness. Younger girls growing up can see the players play. They're like, hey, I want to be a part of this when I'm older also.
Absolutely. And looking at your playing days at high school, one thing that always stood out to me was your demeanor and your disposition of how you played all the sports, where you did your job, you worked incredibly hard, but if a random person were to walk out on a baseball field in the middle of a game or a basketball court and see you, nobody would have any idea if we were up 20 or down 20, because you had the same demeanor no matter what. Where does that come from, and how do you think having that kind of demeanor helps in athletics?
Yeah, I think a lot of that just maybe stems from just like internalizing a lot of expressions and emotions and kind of a lot of, I know a lot of like for like golf and basketball and baseball, a lot of the competition isn't always necessarily against the other person, but it's against yourself too. And wanting you to be yourself, to be better, and pushing yourself to be the best that you can. So like, I know myself, especially like out on the basketball court or baseball diamond, like you said, it didn't really occur to me to like blame the other person or accuse someone else for my shortcomings. But maybe I could be too hard on myself possibly,
Sure.
but a lot of the times I use that just to drive myself to be better, saying, hey, like I messed up here, or this is something I could have done better. And it wasn't anyone else's fault. And I didn't really want to make an excuse for it, because when you see someone else make an excuse, you're like, that doesn't look the best. And you're like, I'll make an excuse to make myself just be a better player.
Excellent. Let's talk about your junior year a little bit, because there was that was a very memorable junior season for our team, making it to a sectional final, first sectional final in school history. And I think you have an interesting role on that team, because that was a very senior dominated team, and you were one of the only juniors that were consistently in the rotation. What are some of your memories of that season and that year?
Yeah, I think I can remember, first off, maybe kind of like timeline it a little bit, like the summer coming into that year. I think it was a lot of like really understanding what my role was going to be on that team, where there's a really talented senior class, and our class is just as talented. Even the class below us, the class below them are just as talented also. So that's one thing that's always great, but also difficult, I guess, with Indian Creek basketball and sports. Like, we just have such a great athletic base that playing time is something that you always have to work for. So yeah, definitely coming into the season, I can remember the Thanksgiving and the Christmas tournament, really understanding my role, not necessarily a starting position, but coming off the bench and just being as effective as possible. And I think one thing I can remember right away is like I was fairly well conditioned, and I think I had the advantage of being able to come off as like the sixth or seventh man and just go full force. And I think that catches the starting five that's still on the court off guard a little bit. So that was advantageous for me. And I was like, hey, well, if I still get a decent amount of playing time coming off the bench, like I'm not going to complain too much about that.
And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, because you were the sixth man that year, but you still played starter minutes. What basically would happen is you'd sit out the first 4 minutes of the first quarter, and then you'd play the rest of the half, and then the same thing in the second half. And I want to say you may have even been like the third leading scorer on the team this year. But you played that sixth man role so effectively. But obviously people love to start and they want to be able to do that. How do you balance that with knowing that obviously everybody wants to be that starter and get their name announced, but also knowing that this is what is best for the team and I am really doing great in this role? How does a player balance something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I know for my personality myself, I'm not a huge fan of conflict. So
Okay.
maybe I was like, well, I don't want to be the guy that disrupts the chemistry and trying to push myself for a starting position. But I think just our record and our success kind of spoke for itself, understanding, well, hey, like don't change the system if it's not broken. The way you had set up the lineup for me to come off the bench midway through the first quarter and then the third quarter, I mean, it worked well. I mean, I was grateful to be playing because I knew there were so many talented players on the team. And I think just for a player to be successful is just to really understand their role, humble themselves, but then also still on the side, like not necessarily accept that that's the ultimatum, but still push himself to just be a better player in a better role. Cause like, you never know in different situations where, hey, there's a starter that could get hurt, or maybe they're not performing where they need to perform. So always be ready for the next step also.
And I think you're a great example, because you were a huge part of that team your junior year, being the sixth man, but then you came back your senior year and you were a starter, you were all conference, you were all those things. So you took that next step. You took advantage of your opportunity the junior year and took the next step into your senior year. So I want to talk a little baseball as well, because for those that don't know, I did coach Indian Creek baseball for a while, and I coached the years that David was there. And I think you have one of the most memorable pitching performances in Indian Creek baseball history. And that was Indian Creek has won one regional championship in the history of the school. And David was the starting pitcher of that game and pitched a complete game, pitched outstanding. What do you remember about that game?
Yeah, I know. I was, I think, a little bit surprised with your decision I made because I still to this day consider Chris Pickwell a better pitcher than I am, and I know he is because he's playing or did play collegiate ball and he did awesome at that. But I think your mindset there was one. I think you and the team as a whole was really thirsty just to get to the regional championships. You're like, we're going to pitch Chris to make sure that we get there, and then let's see what David can do. Maybe there was more to that. I don't know, but I can remember before the game, obviously being nervous. I remember, I think Lane was catching me that game, Lane Rissman. So him and I had caught each other. I think Tim caught me that year too, and maybe even Brock a little bit also. But I was definitely comfortable with Lane. I can remember on the bus ride trying to put away the conversation, but I can remember guys talking about how Lane and I were going to celebrate after I threw my final pitch in the seventh inning. I'm like, hey, like don't talk about that. Like we have a whole like 2 or 3 hours left in 7 innings to play before that happens. But I can remember just being like, after I started off, just being really comfortable. The defense behind me, like, I mean, that was like my bread and butter. The defense behind me, I'd throw strikes and they'd hit balls to the defense would make plays, and that was what helped me succeed so well as a pitcher. Because I can remember also like I'd get uncomfortable if there was a guy on the base path, and so I was like, well, I'm going to do my best to make sure no one gets on base.
There you go. There you go. And I think you're the type of pitcher that is perfect for regional championship games because one, we talked about earlier, your demeanor never changes. So you were just going to do what you do, and I didn't have to worry at all about, what's going to happen if something doesn't go your way. But also you throw a ton of strikes, and you throw strikes. So if the other team was going to beat us, they were going to beat us by hitting. And I think that's a perfect combination. And you're right. I remember the defense was fantastic that day. And I think we ended up with like a 5-1 victory. So
yes. Yep. Yeah. I can remember too. I think it might've been even my senior year. I had the conversation with you. Is like, hey coach, like what could I do to strike out more batters? Cause obviously like getting an outs and out, but striking a batter out also looks really cool too. But I can remember you say like, hey, like your strikeout pitch is like a pop out to right field. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's right.
Keep bumping those strikes. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give for current players that are maybe going through their high school careers right now? I think some of them, to be honest, are starting to, because of spring sports getting canceled and there's so much up in the air, they're starting to realize how much to appreciate it. What kind of advice would you give like current players right now?
Yeah, I think one that I know I struggled with is like, hey, I could be really great at one of these 3 sports, and I could just drop the other 2 sports and really focus on one sport. But I really encourage players that are maybe on the fence about that to, unless you see yourself really going far in sports, to really take full advantage of the opportunity that high school has, especially at a big, smaller school like ours, to play as many sports as you can, because you can really pull a lot from different sports through just competitiveness and teamwork and just staying busy year round. So I would definitely encourage players that are talented enough and have the drive for it to play as many sports as they're able to in high school. And then, what was the rest of that question?
Just the advice. And I think that's really good advice. And I look back at the time when you were in high school. I think that was the last time, 2014 was the last time boys sports and multiple sports won a regional championship, where it was baseball and it was basketball. And this year we had basketball and we had soccer as well. So, and the only way for that to work for multiple sports at a small school to be competitive is you have to have the athletes playing all the sports. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, and then I think too, I know like obviously after the end of every season, like your senior year, it's definitely an emotional time. You're like, oh, I'm never going to play sports again, or like you just feel like, oh, I could have done more, could have done better. But I think that's all too easy to kind of get down on yourself. But I think the biggest thing I've taken away from that is just really reflect on like the positives and like what you're taking away. And I mean, I know post high school, I've been able to stay active through college and like intramurals and club sports. So you can definitely fulfill your competitive nature in that way. But I think athletics go so much farther than like the physicalness and the competitiveness, like definitely your mindset and like just how you treat like everything, like for your work and your job. Like if you go into with a positive attitude and you want to improve, like you can correlate to just about anything in your life.
You've brought me to a perfect segue to my next question. I appreciate that. What after high school? Give us an update. Where did you go to school? What have you been doing? Where are you at in your life now, basically?
Okay, yeah. Starting off, I kind of bumped around a little bit. I actually signed to play basketball at Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Illinois, and I was there for one semester. I did well academically. I enjoyed my experience on the basketball team there, but really understood that, hey, like basketball is not as high as a priority as I thought it was. I definitely really am glad that I tried it out for college for 1 year or for one semester. But then I really had desire to go to a bigger university. Kind of the smaller university I didn't feel like in long term that I really was going to get the most out of my experience there. So I looked to transfer to the University of Illinois in Champaign. So I went home to 1 year because I couldn't transfer directly to go to Kishwaukee College. And then I went to the U of I for the remainder of my college career. So I was at 3 different places for 3 different semesters, but finally settled down there and got my bachelor's there. And then I decided to do a 1-year graduate program in the College of Business there in management. My undergrad was in ag economics. And so I just graduated this May with my master's. And then starting this July, I'll be working in Peoria for Caterpillar as a marketing representative on their marketing team.
That is outstanding. Congratulations. And that's got to feel good, right? To be able to do that. And where do you think sports has helped with that commitment? Because to be able to not only, you said you went to 3 different schools, and then not only just graduate with a bachelor's, but graduate with a master's. And like I just said, you graduated high school in 2015, and you've done all this stuff. How did sports help with that discipline that you obviously have had to have?
I think a mindset of just like continual improvement, and then not settling, I guess. Just having like my mindset, just a constant drive to want to be the best that I can. Maybe a little bit is performance based and maybe people pleasing a little bit, but I think that's a healthy dose. But I think, just wanting to be the best that I can and setting myself up to succeed. And then also I've been super fortunate and grateful for athletics to have a great support system with like coaches and teammates, but then through college and then now my work career, I've had an awesome support system with my family and friends. So I think one thing I've taken away from sports is you don't have to do it all yourself. To be able to rely on those around you is just as important as being successful yourself.
I think that's great advice, and I think that's hopefully many of our players now are listening to that and can understand that, because that can be tough. That can be tough when you're young to think that it's okay to rely on other people, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay for those things, because that helps you become a better person. So. Yeah, well, David, I really appreciate you coming on here today. You've given us some great info, and I'm so glad to hear that you're doing so well, and you've continued on. You were a great student for us. You were a great athlete for us at Indian Creek, and I think we all knew that would continue on. And it's great to hear that is the case.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and thank you for reaching out to having me on. It's been great to catch up, and I guess great to reminisce a little bit. I haven't thought about these memories for a while, so it's kind of cool to reflect on them also. And it's also impressive that you have just a great memory about them also.
Yeah, my memories. Yeah, you would be shocked at how much I can remember about just random basketball games.
Yeah, I know. It's like I was always impressed in baseball and basketball when you could quote different things and bring up different scenarios. I'm like, oh, that's something that I can't do whatsoever.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It might be a useless talent, but it's a talent that I have. So
yeah, I'm glad you're the one asking the questions, because I don't know if I know what to ask.
Right, but it's one of the things I've enjoyed about doing these as well, is getting to go back in memory lane and talk to some of you guys that I haven't talked to in a while. So it's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, it's really cool, something you're putting together.
So thanks again for coming on. Appreciate all that you've done for us, and we wish you well in the future.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck to you too in the coaching world.
Thank you. That was David Boehne, 2015 graduate of Indian Creek. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will have episode 5 next week. So thank you very much for watching.